The word Negro is from Latin, nigrum, masculine accusative case of niger, and it means black. The word is still used in Spanish language today for the color black. When used of people, this word always refers to the black appearance of the skin tone. Hence, we have el hombre negro, which means the black man. According to the Bible and multiple eyewitnesses who documented the accounts throughout history, the ancient Israelites were black-skinned people. In other words, the biblical bloodline Israelites were Negroes. And since the Israelites tended to marry among their own people, their children's children after them will still retain their black-skinned negroid feature. Hence, the descendants of these Negroes are still Negroes today. In this video, I attempt to present the evidence and historical references that have been unearthed and uncovered thus far by many people who came before me and have done the heavy lifting. I am merely presenting all the references I find important in one video so that those who wished to have them can refer to them. I will put the links in the description box in numerical order as they appear in the video for easy access and for the benefit of the viewer. Let us now go to these documents and historical records and see the irrefutable evidences which show that the true Jews and Israelites mentioned in the Bible were and still are Negroes, that is, black skin in color. And as Paul was to be led into the castle, he said unto the chief captain, May I speak unto thee? Who said, Canst thou speak Greek? Art not thou that Egyptian, which before these days made us an uproar, and led us out into the wilderness 4,000 men that were murderers? But Paul said, I am a man which am a Jew of Tarsus. Apostle Paul was mistaken for an Egyptian. But how could Paul be mistaken for an Egyptian except he looked like an Egyptian? In math, there is something called the property of equality. It goes like this. If A equals B, then B equals A. In other words, if Paul, an Israelite, looked like an Egyptian, then Egyptians look like Israelites. How did ancient Egyptians look like? What were their features? The ancient Egyptians left a lot of wall paintings of themselves. To know how they look like, we simply need to look at the statues and wall paintings they left of themselves. It's not that difficult. This is how the ancient Egyptians, sons of Ham, Noah's youngest son, looked like. As can be seen, they had black or brown skin color, woolly hair type with braids and cornrows, and thick full lips. That's it. The ancient Egyptians were black-skinned Africoid people. Therefore, since the ancient Israelites looked like them, then B equals A. That is, the ancient Israelites were black, brown skin color Africoid people also. Case closed. Anybody who denies this obvious fact and tries to teach you otherwise is really attempting to offend your intellect, and they take you for a stupid fool like themselves and a deceiver. Cease, my son, to hear the instruction that causeth to err from the words of knowledge. Go from the presence of a foolish man when thou perceivest not in him the lips of knowledge. He that walketh with wise men shall be wise, but the companion of fools shall be destroyed. Listen to advice and accept discipline. And at the end, you will be counted among the wise. For anyone who is trying to be slick and denying the obvious fact that these wall paintings are depicting black-skinned people, we have more evidence from first-hand eyewitnesses to present to you, besides the obvious pictures. Let's get to them. Many Greek and Roman historians of antiquity recorded their own experiences with the ancient Egyptians, as they themselves have seen them with their own eyes. The following are their own words, written with their own fingers, in their own books. For it is plain to see that the Colchians are Egyptians, and what I say, I myself noted before I heard it from others. When it occurred to me, I inquired of both people. I myself guessed it, partly because they are dark-skinned and woolly-haired. Herodotus was a Greek historian who lived in the 5th century BC. He met and talked with the ancient Egyptians of his days and wrote down what he saw and learned of them. Here in this quote, Herodotus is telling us here that he met a people called Colchians, and he noticed that they had dark or black skin and woolly hair like the Egyptians. Next is Strabo, a Greek geographer, philosopher, and historian who lived in the 1st century. He wrote this about the Egyptians and the Jews of his time. These districts of Jerusalem and Joppa lie towards the north. They are inhabited generally, and each place in particular, by mixed tribes of Egyptians, Arabians, and Phoenicians. But although there is such a mixture of inhabitants, the report most credited, one among many things believed respecting the temple and the inhabitants of Jerusalem, is that the Egyptians were the ancestors of the present Jews. Here again, we see another eyewitness telling us that the most credited report of his days, that is, during the time of Yahushua himself, called Jesus Christ of Nazareth by the Gentiles, was that the Egyptians were believed by the Greek and Roman foreigners to be the ancestors of the Jews. That means the Jews were visibly seen by the Greeks and Romans to look like the black-skinned Egyptians. In other words, the Israelite Jews themselves were black-skinned like the Egyptians. After reading Strabo, we begin to see how and why the Greek captain mistook Paul for an Egyptian. As Strabo himself reported, many mixed tribes of Egyptians, Arabians, and Phoenicians inhabited many districts of Jerusalem and Joppa toward the north. Thus, it is easy to imagine how they all look alike with black skin to the white European Greek eyes, in the same way that all Asians look the same to many of us. Next, we come to Publius Cornelius Tacitus, a Roman historian, orator, and public official who lived in the 1st century AD. He wrote about the Jews of his time in the following way. Some say that the Jews were fugitives from the island of Crete, who settled on the nearest coast of Africa about the time when Saturn was driven from his throne by the power of Jupiter. Many again say that they were a race of Ethiopian origin. The word Ethiopian is from ancient Greek, and it means burnt face. It is made up of two words, aito, to burn, and apс, an eye or face. That was the description the Greeks gave to the sons of Ham, especially the Cushites, when they first met them in antiquity. Compared to the Greeks, the Cushites were so dark and black, as they still are today, that the pinkish pale-skinned Greeks referred to them as burnt faces or Ethiops in the Greek language. Likewise, to call the ancient Jews a race of Ethiopian origin means that they must have been of burnt faces like the Ethiopians. In other words, they must have been extremely dark or black skinned. These are well documented evidences from antiquity which prove that the ancient Jews and Israelites were an extremely black skinned people or burnt faces. A hadith, plural, ahadith, is one of various reports describing the words, actions, or habits of the Islamic prophet Muhammad. The term comes from the Arabic language and means a report, account, or narrative. In their hadith or narrative, the first Muslims reported that the biblical Israelites were black, brown-skinned people. The prophet said, "I saw Moses, Jesus, and Abraham on the night of my ascension to the heavens. Moses was of brown complexion, straight hair, and tall stature, as if he was from the people of Az-Zut." We are told that Moses was brown-skinned, not white European Ashkenazi. And to help us visualize what kind of brown he's talking about, we are given a direct comparison of Moses to some people called the Az-Zut. Who were these people and how did they look like? I found a reference from another hadith written by Ahmed bin Habal in the 8th century about how these Az-Zut people look like. When he, Ibn Mas'ud, saw Az-Zut, a kind of black people who are known to be tall and slim, he said they are just like these ones. We are told here that the Az-Zut were a black-skinned and tall people, and we are told that Moses looked like them. So Moses, according to this hadith, was a tall, black-skinned man, or what we would call a Negro in America. Other ahadith compared Moses of the tribe of Levi, of the sons of Jacob, to some other people called Shenua. Allah's apostle said, "On the night of my ascension to heaven, I saw the prophet Moses, who was a thin person with lank hair, looking like one of the men of the tribe of Shenua." The prophet said, "On the night of my ascension to the heaven, I saw Moses, who was a tall, brown, curly-haired man, as if he was one of the men of Shenua tribe." The prophet mentioned the night of his ascension and said, "The prophet Moses was brown, a tall person, as if from the people of the tribe of Shenua." Here again, we are told that Moses, an Israelite, was brown-skinned, and we are given a direct visual comparison to an ancient people called the Shenua. Who were these people and how did they look like? We found a book online called The Biography of Imam Tahawi, written by Mufti Said Ahmed Palempuri. This Imam al-Tahawi was a Sunni Islamic scholar who was born in Upper Egypt around 853 AD. According to Islamic records, he was from a Yemeni clan known as al-Hajar. In the book, the author Mufti Said tells us that Az is famous clan in Yemen. Hajar is a branch of that clan. The other famous branch of Az is Shenua. Thus, Shenua is a sub-branch of a clan called Ads. Who were these Ads and how did they look like? We read from Wikipedia that The Ads or Al-Ads are an Arabian tribe. They were a branch of the Kalen tribe, which was one of the two branches of Qatan, the other being Himyar. We further read that the Qatans, or these Qatanites or Qatani as they were called, are Arabs who originate from the southern region of the Arabian Peninsula, especially from Yemen. And according to Islamic tradition, the Qatanites are pure Arabs. So, the Shenua were a branch of pure Arabs whose descendants now live in Yemen. And here is how the descendants of these original Arabs still look today in Yemen. We also have the record of an early Arabic scholar living in the 13th century and writing of the skin color of the original pure Arab of his time and before his time. The Arabs used to take pride in their brown and black complexion, and they had a distaste for a white and fair complexion, and they used to say that such was the complexion of the non-Arabs. There we have it. We read from the Ahadith writers and commentators that the original Arabs were black-skinned, and we also read from them that the Israelites looked like them. Therefore, according to the Muslims in the Ahadith, the biblical Israelites were not pinkish pale-skinned Europeans, but black-skinned people like the pure Arab cousins. We even have the accounts of many European writers who recorded the existence of Israelite Jews in Europe throughout the centuries. In these writings, they tell us plainly that the Jews they encountered or heard about were Negroes or black-skinned people. Here is the best and direct evidence we have found thus far. 'Tis also a vulgar error that the Jews are all black, for this is only true of the Portuguese Jews, who, marrying always among one another, beget children like themselves, and consequently the swarthiness of the complexion is entailed upon the whole race, even in the northern regions. But the Jews who are originally of Germany, those for example I have seen at Prague, are not blacker than the rest of the countrymen. This needs no interpretation. It is plain, clear, and direct. The Jews were black-skinned people. Simple. And this, not only the European Jews or the real Jews who traveled and fled to Europe, but also, as the author tells us, the rest of the countrymen. That is, the black skin complexion is entailed upon the whole race. In other words, every bloodline Israelite were black skinned in complexion. And moreover, as the author also told us, they married always among one another, beget children like themselves. Thus, we can expect them to still be black skinned today in the 21st century. If we find some people who are not black skinned yet call themselves Jews, we need to ask ourselves some questions. What is going on here? Is this what is meant by identity theft? Our next reference comes from a Reverend Samuel Colcourt Bartlett. He wrote this in 1882. In regard to the human race, it has been shown abundantly and historically that each of the external differences often ceases to be characteristics. Thus, the black color is found not only in individuals as the black Jews of Portugal, but in tribes as the Bicaris on the Red Sea, whose hair and character are perfectly Semitic. Here we have another source telling us that the Jews were black. Moreover, the same source tells us of a tribe of people who had Semitic hair type. Let's try to find a picture of these people to see how their Semitic hair looked like. And here they are. As can be seen, not only their skin is black, but they have woolly Afro-texture hair. Hence, Semitic hair, according to the author's first-hand account, is of Afro-texture type, not European Ashkenazi type. Around the 19th century is when we begin to see references of quote-unquote white Jews. These white Jews came on the scene way later in history, all the way from Germany, and they began to falsify documents as soon as they came on the scene to infuse themselves in history in the antiquity of the real black Jews. Thus, they began the identity theft machinery. Here is a documented reference to what I'm saying. The black Jews of Malabar, as well as their white brethren on the same coast, have attracted the attention of those interested in the subject by the account of Dr. Claudius Buchanan, who visited them in 1806, 1807, 1808, and published an account of them in his Christian Researches. The former are beyond doubt the more ancient of two classes, which settled near Quilon, but are Benjamin's information that they even possessed some little knowledge of the Talmud and its decisions raises some doubts against the claims of the white Jews and against the early date of the document which they produced, and by which it would appear that they settled in the country 231 of the Christian era. Many doubts have been raised respecting the interpretation of the dates which are found on the brass tablets preserved by the white Jews, on which the privileges are engraved, and of which in Quiltil Duperon, Dr. Buchanan, in the Asiatic Journal render an account. If it should even be found true by further investigations that the dates be indeed correct, it still remains a question whether the privileges were originally granted to the black or white Jews, or whether the latter, the white Jews, came into possession of these tablets by stratagem or accident. We hope to have proved that Benjamin of Tudela is no mean authority, and it certainly remains difficult to explain why he should not have mentioned the white Jews also, had they been established in his time. He who so diligently collected all information respecting his brethren would certainly not have omitted to give an account of this remarkable colony. The author used the word stratagem. Here is what the dictionary tells us the word means: a plan or scheme, especially one used to outfit an opponent or achieve an end. And here is another dictionary definition: a plan, scheme, or trick for surprising or deceiving an enemy. Any artifice, ruse, or trick devised or used to attain a goal or to gain an advantage over an adversary or competitor. So these white Jews, according to this author, are using scheme, ruse, and trick in order to gain an advantage over the adversary or competitors. I mean, the real black Jews. From beyond the rivers of Ethiopia, my suppliants, even the daughter of my dispersed, shall bring mine offering. Ethiopia, or burnt face, is in Africa. The river being referred to here is the Nile River, which flows from the mountains and rivers of Ethiopia, Uganda, and South Sudan, and ends at the Mediterranean Sea. The word beyond used here is eber in Hebrew, and it means region across on the other side of the river from Ethiopia. Thus, this links us to Central and West Africa. Now, here is how the people in Central and West Africa look like. All black skin, all Negroes, all very beautiful people. We also have documented evidences that these black-skinned Israelite Jews were in the west coast of Africa since before 1492. It is well documented by historians that they traveled and lived across or west to the river of Ethiopia below the Sahara Desert. Howbeit, they say that upon Nilus do inhabit two great and populous nations, one of Jews toward the west under the government of a mighty king, the other more southernly consisting of Amazones or warlike women. Another eyewitness traveler named Benjamin Otudela, who lived in the 12th century, told us that there was constant and continuous back and forth travel and interaction between the people of the Nile River, Ethiopia and Egypt, and the people of the Niger River, Ghana. Many merchants, Arab, Egyptians, Ethiopians, and Israelites traveled from Egypt to the west coast of Africa in Ghana. From Aswan to Chalwa, 12 days. This place contains about 300 Jews and is the starting point of the caravans who traversed the desert Al-Zahara in 50 days on their way to Savila, the Kavila of Scripture, which is in the country of Ghana. This desert contains mountains of sand, and whenever a storm arises, the caravans are exposed to the imminent danger of being buried alive by the sand. Those which escape, however, carry iron, copper, different sorts of fruits, pulse, and salt. Gold and precious stones are brought from thence in exchange. This country lies westward of Kush or Abyssinia. Here is a map that shows the route from Aswan in Egypt to Ghana. As anyone can see, you have to cross the Sahara Desert. This country, Ghana, lies westward of Kush or Ethiopia. And this comes as no surprise to us, since the Bible already told us Yahweh's people, the Israelites, would be migrating from West Africa. From beyond or across on the other side to the west of the rivers of Ethiopia, my suppliants, even the daughter of my dispersed, shall bring mine offering. While in the west coast of Africa, according to yet another historically documented record, Israelite Jews built the town on which the city later known as Timbuktu in West Africa was founded. The text reference is in French, so I will try my best to translate it for the viewers who do not speak French. In the year 902, 9 September 1492, 29 August 1497, was built the city of Tenderma. Askia Mohammed gave order to King Fari to build him a capital city. After searching around, according to the advice of the prince, in the surrounding regions and in the region near the desert, Amar came to Tenderma, where the place captivated him. This place was the home of a group of Jews, where we still find even today the remains of the tombs and water wells. Here is what an inhabitant of the area told us about the people who used to live there. In those times, 7 princes who descended from the kings of the Jews ruled the city: Jebrut ben Hisham, Zulyemen ben Abdelakim, Zeher ben Salam, Abdelatif ben Suleiman, Malik ben Ayoub, Fedo ben Mizar, and Galib ben Yusuf. Each of them had under him a big army, and each prince had his own water wells for himself and his troops. Anyone who mistakenly drew water from a well which belonged to another prince to water his plants must indemnify or compensate the prince to whom the well belonged, whether the mistake was committed by a free man or a slave. Each prince had 12,000 knights or horsemen, and when it came to infantrymen, meaning those who go by foot, one could not count them nor enumerate them. So it is confirmed, Israelites were in the west coast of Africa long before Islam and long before the Euro-Christian colonizers invaded the continent. And it is from these Israelite people who live in the west coast of Africa that the so-called African Americans, Afro-Cubans, Afro-Mexicans, Afro-Puerto Ricans, Afro-Brazilians, Jamaicans, Haitians, Afro, etc., were taken as prisoners of a racial and religious war waged against them. This is undeniable, documented history. These Afro people are bloodline Israelites, the 12 tribes of Negroes, the genetic bloodline descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. To recap, it is well documented that the biblical Israelites were a black-skinned people. And it is well documented that they married among themselves and remained black-skinned wherever they went all throughout history. It is well documented that many of them lived in the west coast of Africa. It is also well documented that some of these same Israelites from West Africa were transported in cargo slave ships to the Americas via what is famously known as the transatlantic slave trade. Many European Ashkenazi Jewish Gentiles are coming out admitting this fact because they cannot hide it anymore.
And I'd like to now bring up another interesting place that you find the descendants of the Israelites, but may not necessarily be from the 10 tribes, but will also play a role. And it shouldn't be overlooked. It's a very serious scenario. Is in Africa. Africa has perhaps hundreds of millions of people with this identity right now of being from the people of Israel. Does that mean they were from the 10 tribes? Likely not. We were taught by the historians and within our own traditions that when the Romans conquered Judea, a few hundred years after that the tribes of Israel went into exile, perhaps millions of Judeans were sold into slavery, into Africa, into Rome, deep into Africa. And if you look now, you're seeing people who are most likely the descendants of those slaves who kept true. I'd like to bring up a few specific examples because they're going to be game changers. And where it gets interesting is, in America, there was a slave trade. And a lot of the slaves, a very high percentage of them, came from Western Nigerian ports. And in America today, you see a very large movement of African Americans who say that they're the real chosen people, that they're the children of Israel, they're the Judeans. You know, so what are they just trying to create an identity for themselves because they were slaves, or is there really something here? And the answer is most likely there is something there. And most likely maybe that they were the original Israelites, and maybe that the Jewish people today who are white, Caucasian people came in a little bit later on. We know that some of the greatest sages of the transmission of the Torah were converts from Rome. You have a man named Onkelos who wrote a commentary on the Torah, unprecedented, that we still learn today. He was a convert. Some of the largest pillars on the transmission today were Roman converts. So here we are, we're Caucasian Jewish people, and now you have people in Africa saying that they're the real people of Israel. It can't be ruled out at all. We know they were sold into slavery. We know now that they're fulfilling prophecies by saying, we're coming back.
The truth is out in the open. The cat is out of the bag. The descendants of Negro slaves in the Americas are the 12 tribes of Israel mentioned in the Holy Bible.